Tim Cahill was one who played for... Was it Samoa? Was it? Yeah.
Wasn't it? He played when he was 14.
Yeah, 14 and 15. So, yeah, that's different. It is different to an extent. People are throwing the James McClean, Shane Duffy argument around that they played with the 21s, but it was different ruling. It was different ruling, and you know what? As well, that's probably a little bit more political as well.
I agree.
So, but ultimately, I'd be of the opinion, and I do feel strongly about it. I knew when I was called up for England when I was 18, 19. It was just a clear no. It was a no. I'm not English, sorry, but no, that's it. And I had Sam Allardyce breathing down my neck, putting me under pressure to play for England because of what it means to the club and financially to Preston at the time.
Did he put you under pressure? Because it's quite ironic that he's been coming out this week saying Rice should play for Ireland.
Sam had a pop, yeah. Sam
get 60 plus caps for Ireland, when he might only get.
Yeah, in fairness to him, he stood down. He kicked me out of his office. Didn't want to talk to me. He made a big speech to us to say basically on the lines of, "This is the proudest moment in my career. I've never had one of my." Sam was coaching me from when I was 14, so Sam played a huge part in my development. So when I was called up for England, he saw it as a feather in his cap that he'd coached a player that has come through a system. And we were League Two club as it is now, Division 3 at the time, bottom tier of English football. I was obviously starting to progress. So there's very few underage players that have come through Preston's system that have been selected to play for England. And I just said clearly no to him. No, Sam, sorry, that's... And anyway, it was over his desk, and I thought he was going to headbutt me at one stage.
That would have been a powerful blow.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But and he kicked me out of the office. In fairness to him, he came down, he climbed down from it, and we spoke later on. It was fine, but that's how I felt at... I felt like, I say 10, I felt it my whole life. But once the Euros came around at 88, when I was, visually, and I was, fully on board with 88 and 90, there was never going to be any going back for me at that stage, because I was actually seeing an Irish team qualifying for a major tournament, albeit with a lot of English-born players that probably, or British-born players, that probably wouldn't have chose us as the first choice if maybe when they were 18, 19. That's the way that it is.
Everyone's been chipping in, as we know this week, us included. Been together the last couple of nights, and Richard Sadlier came out very strongly, in my opinion. We've got his quotes up on the screen. For anyone that's not watching it, monumental bollocks. You'd rather never qualify. I'm sure the point he's making was the case. Now I know there's no sense in my head that I have rushed this or panicked because I listened to everyone. I've seen the whole board and I know all my moves, and in every scenario this was the decision that made sense to me, so I'm going to make it. Give me the Irish jersey, call me up. Are you saying we don't want that outcome now because we had that little bit of space? Surely not. So we were together when we seen that too.
Yeah, you actually sent to me, didn't you? I mean, I hadn't seen it. First time I've read that, actually. I think it's a little bit disrespectful to me personally when that's the headline that comes out, monumental bollocks. Personally, I wouldn't want an Irish team qualifying for a major tournament if we had players that weren't committed. I stand by it. That's how I was brought up. I was brought up in a different time over in England when it was very different for Irish people growing up in England. You stuck together, basically. It has been said to me in the past, and again, I'm not saying I'm more Irish than you or anybody else, but I think over in England it was very different. It was,
especially in that time. Let's not forget.
It was. It was
70s, early 80s, obviously before.
Yeah. Exactly. When my parents, particularly my dad went over with no education, working on the roads, and a lot of the lads working on the roads, tunnelling, digging roads, all these sort of things, the jobs that they would have had, they were targeted. They were targeted for abuse, and that was what made them stick together a hell of a lot more. I was brought up with that, and that was the message that was being relayed to me when I was going to. If I was going to the pub with my uncles, my dads, and all this sort of thing, meeting them, you were hearing little stories, little snippets, and. It did cement a degree of maybe patriotism that I don't know that maybe a lot of lads can't comprehend or can't take on board. That's what. I
don't know many people. I said this. I don't know many people that are better qualified to have an opinion on this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And there's maybe a number of factors. Yeah, I think. Personally, I'd rather listen to someone like Gary Breen talking about it, maybe as you had a David Conley, Alan Kelly, whoever it would be, lads who have actually been brought up in an environment that was maybe, I'm not saying anti-Irish, but certainly pro going to play, our environment, certainly coming through a system of professional football, were pushed towards a certain way. I've known lads that, and I've spoken to lads who have actually played for England who said they would have preferred to play for us, that have got senior international caps that would have preferred to play for us because they felt as though they had more of an allegiance to Ireland, but they were pushed in a certain way at youth level.
And is this going back even?
This is going 10, back 20, 30 years, yeah. 20 years when I first...
even then it was happening.
Well, so 20, I'm not that old, it's not 30, 20.
Imagine now the pressure and the power the agents have now.
Yeah, you even see David Gold at West Ham. He knows full well, marketing-wise, he's worth a hell of a lot more to West Ham. It's worth a lot more to Declan himself. Yeah. So we're looking at all these sort of things. All I'm saying is with this is, and I you know, Richie, I like listening to Richie. I think he's obviously well-educated boy, but I think to come out with that statement straight away, I personally think it's disrespectful to me, and as a fellow pro as well. I'd personally think that. That's what I think. I would never. If I disagree with something that Richie said, I wouldn't necessarily come out with that statement to start with. I'd just say, look, I'm not having it, whatever it would be, and I'd try and make my arguments around it. I would rather not. And maybe it's an exaggeration. Maybe not. I wasn't certainly looking to try and get a few likes on a tweet that I put out.
Oh, I know, and I know you well enough that it was passion straight away.
I lost my head a little bit when I read
here we are. What did you do that on Monday? Here we are on Thursday, we're 3-4 days on, and you're still feeling the exact same. It's not as if it was an impulsive
genuinely
reaction.
I'd rather we didn't qualify for another tournament if we had lads that were feeling like that. But another thing, Keith, and the thing that's something that's not really been talked about a lot, you know, for every time that I've been part of an international squad, you have had a similar sort of discussions with me. I've had discussions with other lads as well as a group when we've been within the squad. We've had lads humming and ahhing. I might go and play for Ireland if something's not going to go right for England. I've had it. We've had it. We knew we've had that conversation when we were part of the Irish setup, and I know for a fact what you think about it, and I know what a majority of the other lads, not necessarily all, I'm not saying that, but a majority of the other lads would not have it, would not welcome him back. They're saying, on you go then, thanks very much, we don't want you. We do not. I didn't want a Jamie O'Hara. I didn't want a Jamie O'Hara.
Mark Noble.
I didn't want these lads saying, more so Jamie O'Hara. He was the one because he was actually coming out saying, look, if I can't get in the squad for a certain tournament, I might declare for Ireland third line. On your bike, mate. Get out of here. Get out of town. I don't want that.
But then, okay, then what about and I've already mentioned, I do think you're in the minority, and you've mentioned Gary Breen, you've mentioned David Connolly. I do think you're in the minority. And a lot of
I take that. Right? And I do take people's opinion. I do. I understand fully. So when you say... I'm fully aware that I'm stronger on this than probably most. I understand that.
And then when you say then, you're okay as long as players are committed. So we would have always said, and you would have been involved in the Ireland teams for a lot longer than I was, but we would quickly recognise who was committed, who was doing it just to get their career along. So, and I'm picking a name out here. Someone like Liam Lawrence, for instance, right?
Yeah. I heard you talking to him last week on your show last week. Yeah.
So he's been on, I think he was a very popular member of the squad, came in, settled very, very well. Irish roots, have to be honest, don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know what his Irish roots were, but I would say that when he came in, as soon as you suss him out as a fella, his work ethic, the way he's going about things, does he fit into the group? I didn't have a problem with that. Where would you stand on someone like that? And again, I don't mean to just pick Liam as a but the principle. I
understand what you're saying, and I know where you may be coming from. Yeah, he came in, played very well for us, played in some big games for us.
You're saying ideal world, not for you.
No, he's not for me. Sorry, but he's not, and that is the truth. That's how I feel about it. And it is, you know, even the tweet that I put out, I've had so much stick from different fans. You're English, you're born in Preston. Who are you? Whatever it will be, and all these sort of things that have come back your way. Lads that saying, look, if you're born in a certain country, you should play for that country. And you know, there's arguments of there's so many. You can't take someone's dream away from them. If you want to play for a certain country and you feel that you are a national of that country, then no one should ever take that away from you. Yes, born in England, fine, take that on board, no problems at all. But all I wanted to was play for Ireland, so no one can take that away from me. So I'm not having that argument at all. It's you are who you are. You are what you are. That's what I would feel. But lads who you know, we've got a policy maybe with the FEI where we're going in the underage structures, and you've been part of the underage structure, you're getting lads, and there's always like, oh, this lad can qualify for us, it's great, you know, his granny's from Tipperary, his granny's from wherever, you know, great. Personally, I think we've got more of a responsibility to be developing our own, rather than pinning our hopes on players over the water that might not necessarily be committed further down the line.
How do you know at the age of, you said I've been involved, how do you really know? I know if they're fully committed.
I'm not saying that policy is wrong. I'm not saying the policy is wrong, because you understand that we got Ed McGeady on board at 15, 16. He got a senior international cap very early, and he probably wasn't ready to, but we got him capped, and he was showing so much ability when he was such a young lad. We had to get him capped because he would have been called up for Scotland, and we knew that. But I just think that if that policy is flawed, because you could get.
How do you get around that though?
You're going to get your fingers burnt further down the line.
Because with Rice as a prime example, all the way along, absolutely devoted to the underage teams, never missed it, attitude impeccable, a real desire, singing the national anthem. How can you foresee
that's a rarity. This case, particularly with the commitment that he's shown and everything that he's spoken about.
By the way, Grealish, when you speak to a lot of the staff at the FAI as well, was the exact same. And again, the one thing that I would suggest they have in common, very, very different personalities, but the one thing I would suggest they have in common is they shot to prominence in the Premier League, and then things changed.
Yeah, exactly. Big FA Cup game for Grealish, of course, wasn't it, as well?
Wasn't it, Wembley?
But the difference is that Grealish didn't play senior international football.
Of course, yes. So this is a step further.
So this is a massive step further. And it's not once, it's 3 times, isn't it? So you simply just don't play the first cap. And then have these doubts in the back of your mind. And maybe even something that Rich is saying here, give the lad a bit of chance, give him a bit of space to make a decision. I'm sorry, I can't accept that. I really can't. He's had plenty of time in the last 6 months, year, 5 years, whatever it's been, to know where his career is going, which path that his career is on, or the path his career is taking, should I say. And you know full well that decision is going to come, or that question is going to be asked somewhere down the line. If you are playing well, look, what would you do? What would you do?
So what are we thinking? Are we thinking it's England, summer, good World Cup, manager in charge who's looking to play in a way that would very much suit him? Are we thinking money? Are we thinking financial gains?
Change of agent, apparently in the last few months.
Is it all those? Is it us going through a bit of a struggling time at the moment? I think it's gone past transition.
Yeah, we've both come through the system over in England. We know how it works. It's geared towards English national team with a lot of young English players, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Declan Rice within West Ham's academy structure is considered English. Then that's the way that I would look at it. And it may be up to Declan to give out a different message. Say, look, I'm not English, I'm Irish. That's how I felt. Again, he probably doesn't feel like that way. He doesn't feel that way. Simply doesn't feel that way because he's made this decision now. If something has gone wrong, if what you've alluded to there, maybe even from what Brian's saying, if something has gone wrong, if there's something internally that's upset him, that's the only way he can come back from this scenario. If he makes a statement and comes out and says, something's gone wrong, I've not been happy with this, I've not been happy with that, whatever it would be, that's the only way back for him. Because personally, I'd never pick him again. And I would never, ever have him near an international squad again.
I think it's still open. And we were chatting about this the other night, that it wouldn't sit well with me at all. I know where you sit on it. But we were chatting the other night about this, and I think he would be accepted, no problem at all. Back in staff, a couple of good performances by fans. I think they would get over it quick enough. And I think within the squad, if you go back years ago, I think there's probably, we're going to sound like old
I'd expect grovelling. I mean, serious. I'd expect maybe phone calls, texts, whatever it will be, and maybe even some sort of statement. I wouldn't accept it. I personally wouldn't accept it, but I would.
What would you do though?
It'd have to go a long way. I'd probably talk to him. I'd talk to him and say, what's the story? If I was part of that international side now, if I was Seamus or whoever it would be, Shane Duffy, whoever it would be, maybe one of the more experienced lad, even a John Walters, whoever it would be, I'd be on the phone to him. I'd ring him up and I'd say, what's the story here? I would do, and I think you give him that respect as a colleague, as a professional, to have that conversation. What's your decision here? Why are we actually doing this? Then at least it becomes clear in your mind that if you are going to accept him back into the fold, if that would be the case further down the line, you've heard him out a little bit. Yeah. That's what I would be doing in this position here.
I do think he can come back in if it pans out, but I don't think it'll happen. I think it's done now.
I don't think he can, but if he were to come back, if he were to come back, I think there would still be an element. There would be a few. There would be a few within the squad
disgruntled.
Not unhappy. Yeah, there would be, without a doubt. But I'd say there'd be quite a lot within the squad that would have sympathy with him.
I think one man they certainly wouldn't be happy with James McClean. He came straight out and supportive of your tweet saying, "Bang on, lad, representing your country should be an honour and a proud moment." I don't think any of us are disputing that. But he would be certainly one of those types where you think it's not going to sit well with him.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's been criticised himself, James, hasn't he, in the past for playing at under 21 level as well. I spoke about that earlier. It is different. He said maybe he abused the system as well, I think, within something that I think he posted something on Instagram, say he abused the system a little bit, really, to further his career, without any intention of ever playing for Northern Ireland. Ultimately, yeah, I think we know James. We know the way. We know his stance in the last few years. He's faced so much criticism from so many fans.
Some of it deserved, I would suggest, and some of it far from deserved. With James,
in what way deserved though? What in
like he's hot-headed by nature.
Oh yeah.
Things that he does. And
I mean, he's got yeah, but he's got a belief. The main issue where he got. I've been to games where he's getting booed by his home fan, by his own fans, and it's simply because of not wearing a poppy.
Yeah, obviously.
And I've said to you, I've said this, and I may have said this as well online. When I was a kid growing up at school, my brother came home from school with a poppy on. My mum nearly beat the head of him. I'm serious. She get out.
Did he not realise?
He didn't realise he was a kid. He was about 5 or 6 in school, and they were giving them out in the school. Never ever come into my house with that again. That was. So you look at the message that was being relayed to me from a kid. Yeah. He's in a different environment, total different environment to me. So I get that totally. So, you know, for all that, I'd be respectful. I've worn shirts in the past when I was playing over in England with a poppy on it. When, you know, I've got to respect maybe my club. I've got to respect the league I'm playing. I've got to respect that. Yeah. But James felt so strongly on that. Of course, I've got to respect him. I totally respect him for that, without a doubt. Yeah.
There's much more from Keith and from Kev on the latest edition of the Keith Andrews Show, which is available to download and listen to and watch at your pleasure on all our social channels and via podcast as well. Just to let you know, Burnley out of Europe. They have drawn 1 each tonight with Olympiacos at Turf Moor. So head out to Olympiacos, who go through to the group stage. Celtic 3-0 up, 4-1 up on aggregate on the night, and we're off to sunny Spain next.
Football on Off the Ball,
in association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app for exclusive price enhancements on the biggest games around. Download it now. Boyle Sports, time to play.
News Talk Breakfast.
You're giving very low marks to the government this morning. Your report card at the start of term is must do much better this term.
Well, must do an awful lot better, because there are two big issues. One is housing. I think that's a no-brainer. The second is climate change and global warming. I know, they're not going to lose or win the next general election on climate change, but it is the biggest challenge mankind is facing since World War II. There's no getting away from that. Absolutely. And there's no getting away from the fact that the government are failing badly in both those areas.
News Talk Breakfast,
in association with AIR.
Back tomorrow on News Talk.
Looking for student accommodation in Dublin? Introducing Sweet Grange Gorman, brand new, state-of-the-art, purpose-built student accommodation. Opening this September in the heart of Dublin City, just 500 metres from the Lewis Green and Red Lines. Sweet Grange Gorman is convenient for all city colleges. Find us on Facebook or visit swuite.com. Show apartments available for viewing now. Book online to secure by deposit.
College is going to be great. Imagine what you could do with an extra €250. Buy any computer or Apple Mac over $699 at Harvey Norman and we'll give you up to €250 cashback. Like the thin, light and powerful MacBook Air. Now €1,029 after cashback. Plus, now at Harvey Norman, we're giving you a 2-year warranty with every Apple device purchased. So call in store or shop online. Only at Harvey Norman.
In Friday's Irish Independent, get match ready with your free Leinster Rugby supplement. There's no better way to get behind your team, your club and your province than with your passion. Read Ross Maloney's player diary on how the only way they can build on last season is by getting even better. In the big interview, Rhys Ruddock explains why he's focusing on keeping standards high over the next few weeks. Plus, Victor Costello and how they're ready to kick on. Only with Friday's Irish Independent. Take a fresh look.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Well, Barcelona continued their decent start to the season last week with a 1-0 win away to Real Valladolid that had its own issues, pitch battles and all of that. Meanwhile, Real Madrid themselves continued on their decent start of the season. Andy West, the BBC, joins us on the line to talk Spanish football. Andy, it's not necessarily the manner of the performance from Barcelona against Valladolid last week that is the main talking point. It's the Valladolid pitch.
Yeah, it's embarrassing really that they had such a poor surface, especially at the time when, and this is a point that Gerard Piqué made after the game, the Barca defender, the time when La Liga are trying to be really proactive in pushing the competition internationally with agreeing to take a game, play a competitive league game in the US, and then they go and serve up a pitch like that for the first game of the season. The pitch was only rolled 4 days beforehand, so it's pretty embarrassing, really, that a top-flight club would have such a poor surface. And it's not the only story of that nature around the league, because Rayo Vallecano, another team who came up this season, they've had their stadium forcibly closed down for a couple of months because it's unsafe. So when you add that together with the poor pitch that people saw Barca playing on, it just doesn't look great for the image of the league.
Yeah, Vallecano, as you mentioned, having their own stadium issues. Sociedad, I know, are only going to be laying their pitch in the next few days as well. I mean, it just seems like the most avoidable of problems to actually have your pitch sorted before the season starts.
You'd think so, but unfortunately there's a general lack of foresight and planning often in La Liga, and that's been, I think, the biggest weakness of the league overall. You know, you just look at the fixture times, how they change those at short notice. People can't plan, fans can't plan, the clubs can't carry out proper marketing campaigns because they don't know when the games are going to take place. And it happened even before the first day of the season. They decided that a game in Seville would be moved because it was too hot. And they decided 2 or 3 days before the game. Come on, you know, it's August, it's Seville, it's Andalusia, it's the south of Spain. You don't have to wait that long to work out that it's going to be hot and it should be played later. So just a general lack of foresight, and really the pitch issue in Valladolid last weekend was symptomatic of that. And you just hope that it can be improved, because it does detract from the overall perception of the league, whereas the football itself is top quality.
It absolutely does, and it's one of these things, as you mentioned, that seems as if it's like on paper it's very easily sortable. Like looking ahead to when you think about the marketability of La Liga and its desire to kind of spread itself internationally, and particularly with that US deal in the offing, it seems like these things are the kind of issues that they want to get sorted before they can actually take the game abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at how it will be done, and I think it just needs a greater level of professionalism. And really, Spanish football is, I don't know, 20 years behind maybe the Premier League in terms of the way it's organised, the way it's run. You go to some top-flight grounds now, and it's like, you know, without being disrespectful to either side, it's like going to a League Two team in England. It's like going somewhere like Rotherham. If you go to somewhere like Girona, you could be thinking you're at Rotherham or at Barnsley, a lower league English club. And I think if they're serious about maximising the quality of the product, the actual football, they've got to improve the way it's packaged. And that comes back to something that I'm sure a lot of people in Ireland are concerned about at the moment. I know they are in the UK. The way that the game is watched, because they've sold the rights now to 11 Sports, which is a new online offering. And okay, the loyal fans will continue to watch the games, and actually they've got a pretty good deal. I think it's £50 for the season, which is a decent price. But for the casual fans, the fans who like football, they mainly want to watch the Premier League, the big games in England, but they'll watch Spanish football if it's on. If they're not watching anything else, they're just not going to watch it anymore. And it's the same in the Champions League as well, with the Champions League in the UK at least going away from Sky Sports. Just less and less people are going to be exposed to the league, and I understand there's similar issues in the US as well, that less people are able to watch it. And in India, you know, the biggest emerging audience, they've gone with a deal with Facebook, which is online only. In theory, it's great because it's free to everyone through Facebook, but you've got to have good enough internet connection, and a lot of places in India don't have that, so there's no chance to actually go to a bar and watch it on the TV, which is where a lot of the excitement comes from, watching with people. It's a social event, watching football. And, you know, these online offerings moving away from that. Of course, the smart TVs, you can hook up your iPad or whatever to your TV, but it's just becoming harder and harder to watch the product, and you just wonder in the long term whether that's the right way to go.
Yeah, let's get to matters on the pitch. It was a 1-0 victory for Barcelona, despite the issues with the surface in Valladolid. Not necessarily the most convincing of performances, but Ousmane Dembélé getting a goal, and the goal that he probably needed in terms of confidence.
Yeah, that was very significant, and he started the season well. He scored a great goal to win the Spanish Super Cup at the start of the season, a 20-yard drive against Sevilla. And then he's followed that up with a decent start in the home game against Alaves, and then the winner in this game against Valladolid. And that's what they really need. I said, I think sometime in January, February, that they wouldn't win the Champions League last season without a big contribution from Dembélé, and they didn't get one. He didn't even play in the return leg at Roma. And I think the same is true this season, that they've got Messi, of course, so they've got a chance in any game. They've got Luis Suarez, who started the season poorly, but we know he'll come back. But you need more than that. You need something unpredictable, someone who can penetrate opposition defences with pace. And that is what Dembélé has, and only really Dembélé has in the squad. So if he can continue the season the way he started, that will really bode well for them, come March or April when it gets to the knockout stage of the Champions League.
Were they entirely happy with him over the summer? Because I know there was a lot of stories, despite the fact he's only been there a year, there were like a lot of stories linking with other clubs, and transfer speculation is one thing, but often there's no smoke without fire when he seems to be offered, or not offered, but at least linked with a series of clubs like Dembélé was over the summer. Were they entirely happy, the Barca hierarchy, with his first season and how he settled?
No, they weren't, and I think that's evident from the team selections from Valverde, the coach, towards the end of the season when he didn't play him in that quarter-final second leg at Roma. He came in, got injured very early, and a lot of people felt that it was a preventable injury, that he could have done more to prevent that injury. There are also concerns that he wasn't taking training seriously enough. But I think the season started well for him when, obviously, he won the World Cup with France, and so he was given an extended break after that. And he came back a couple of days early. And I think that was a very positive sign that he was really ready to commit and to work hard to turn himself into a success. He's a young guy, and the unfortunate thing for him is he's forever going to be saddled with this fee, 105 million, replacing Neymar. That's going to put a lot of expectation on him. If they'd signed him in different circumstances, he wouldn't have had the same expectation, and he'd have been allowed to grow into his role more. But the way he came in, people expect results from him, and he needs to really knuckle down, and he is doing that so far, in fairness to him.
He does. He has got youth on his side, to be fair, and oftentimes, especially with a move abroad, it does take a year. It happens in the Premier League, it's happened in the Bundesliga numerous times, whereby a player gets a year, they get their bearings, second year they absolutely start off like a train, and it seems as if he's doing okay this time around. Yeah,
and I think adapting to the team's style of play as well is a big issue for him, because he's very inexperienced. He'd only had 2 seasons of top-flight football before Barca signed him, and he hadn't played with a team like Barcelona. He was at Dortmund before that, who play a very different style. So the possession-based game is something that takes some adapting. And you could see last season, when he was early on in his career with Barca, he'd get the ball and he'd just want to run straight at the defence, as quickly as possible, attack the goal. Sometimes that's great, but Barca don't really play that way. Often you have to go back to eventually go forward. It's more patient. It has to be because of the way teams play against them. So he's adapting. He has got time, obviously. And what's undoubtedly true is his talent. We've seen flashes of that throughout. His ability on the ball to beat defenders. He frightens defences with his ability to run with the ball. And he just needs to start delivering it in the right way, knowing when to take the safe option and just to go back, play the simple square pass, and knowing when to take the chances with possession.
Tell me this, how forgiving, because you mentioned that, Luis Suarez will eventually come good this season, and, all previous signifiers suggest that he will, and it's going to be fine. But how forgiving are the Barcelona public of his slow start this time round? Because I'm even thinking back to the World Cup. In the World Cup, he had a sluggish enough tournament. We expected a little bit more from him. He looked like maybe he was carrying a few more pounds than he probably should have been. Are the Barcelona public, are the Barcelona hierarchy forgiving of the way he started the season?
There's always, it's interesting with, and I think this is true with every club, but I always particularly notice it with Barcelona, that the fans who go to games are very different from social media fans. So you get fans, or if you go on Twitter, you would think Luis Suarez is the most hated man in Barcelona at the moment. But you go to the games and he gets a lot more support. I was thinking of this actually when we were talking about Dembélé. The same is true with him, that the fans in the stadium absolutely want him to succeed and have a lot of patience with him. And every time he gets the ball, they're urging him to do something good with it. They're really supportive of him. And I think the same is largely true with Suarez. But there were some groans and moans around the stadium. I was at the opening game against Alaves, and he had a really poor game. And when Luis Suarez is poor, he's really poor. Yeah. He unfortunately, his touch can be very heavy. His decision-making can be poor. And there were a few groans around the place. They play at home again this weekend against Huesca, who've just come up. He needs a goal. He just needs a goal to get going. He started last season poorly as well. But he's the kind of player, when he gets into a rhythm, he's the best centre-forward in the world. I think that will come soon enough.
I'm fascinated by Huesca. Like you mentioned, these small grounds, these Rotherham-esque kind of grounds that the smaller teams that come up into the league have. Just a stadium of just over 5,000 is what they have. They pulled off a remarkable draw away to Athletic Bilbao last week at 2-2 at the San Mamés. They are a small side, but they've come up with plenty of guts, it would seem.
Yeah, and they're a team that's following a model that we've seen in La Liga in the last few years of these small teams who manage the club well, have a tiny budget, but get players who are hungry and they're well organised. And we've seen it with Eibar, Leganés, Girona. They've all come up and stayed up. All of them with these tiny stadiums, exactly as you say with Huesca, and a very bright start from them. That draw with a late equaliser in Bilbao last weekend, and they started with a win as well. So they got 4 points coming into the game. One of the few teams unbeaten in the league. So obviously this is an entirely different test, and it'll be very interesting to see how they go about the game at Barcelona, whether they have ambition to try and attack Barcelona, because so many teams you come see, they're scared to play. But Huesca maybe will follow the example of Alaves, who a couple of years ago, early in their first season up, won at Barcelona because they were had that confidence to think, we got nothing to lose, let's just go and enjoy it, and they ended up winning that game. Will Huesca have that same spirit about them this weekend? I hope so. Yeah,
one fascinating aspect of this week as well is we're going to have the transfer window close. I know Real Madrid have been doing some business. They've signed a player in Mariano Diaz for 33 million, one that they sold for significantly less than that just a year ago. And according to Jean-Michel Aulas, the president of Lyon, Madrid didn't initially want him this summer. It seems that they've changed their mind. What's precipitated that change of mind?
Well, I think it was the lack of a Galactico coming in. There was talk of Eden Hazard, there was talk of Mbappe, there was talk of Neymar. Didn't get any of them. And they needed someone, because Karim Benzema at the moment is the only centre-forward. Sorry, he was. Obviously, they're now signed Mariano as well. But he was the only centre-forward in the squad who they really trusted. They've got Borja Mayoral, but he's going to be allowed to go and never really figured in the plan seriously. So they needed someone. They've gone back to what they know. Mariano came up through the youth ranks. He's actually from Barcelona. He was born just a few miles up the coast from Barcelona, but spent a few years with Real Madrid, only had a few games in the first team. And when he left a couple of years ago, he's gone. It was inevitable he wasn't going to make it. Then he had this great season with Lyon, scored 20-odd goals, and they brought him back. So what's going to be interesting to see is how much Lopetegui intends to use him. Is he just there in case of an emergency, if Benzema gets injured, or if they're winning 5-0 at home and they want to give Benzema half an hour off? Or does he intend to really see him compete for a starting place? They do need some backup. You can't expect Benzema to play 60 games a season, which is what they'll be hoping to play. But yeah, he's something different as well. He's quick, he's direct. He's very direct towards goal, so a different style from Benzema, who likes to link play. But it'd be interesting to see now how much he's used.
Yeah, this window has kind of been notable more so for deals that haven't happened and didn't happen than ones that actually have. When you think back to Griezmann and his decision, documentary nonsense that happened at the start of the summer, and then, as you mentioned, a string of big names listed are linked to Real Madrid, none of which have really happened. Similarly, Barcelona, that link with Pogba is still there, and you'd imagine will remain paper talk beyond September 1st. Are we likely to see anything big happen over the course of the next 3-4 days?
Not anything big, no. I don't think there'll be a big move like a Pogba type deal. There's a few little deals bubbling under. Barcelona do want to bring someone else in, and it might be a right back, because Ernesto Valverde wants to move Sergio Roberto into midfield, but He's not entirely happy with Nelson Semedo, and so he maybe needs another right back for that position. And Real Madrid might bring in another centre back because they're not happy with Jesus Vallejo, who's their fourth choice. There's talk of Mario Hermoso from Espanyol being the player thereafter. So there might be some smaller deals of that nature, but nothing major, no.
Nothing major. We'll keep tabs regardless, and we'll hold this line to you once those 300 million euro deals get over the line come the early part of next week.
Yeah, when Pogba joins Barca in a couple of days, come back.
Yeah, when he's holding the scarf out in the Camp Nou, we'll come back to you, Andy West. Thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us today.
Thank you.